Hi guys. So today I'm interviewing Miss Prasija, who is my counselor at Stonehill, where I went to high school. I have rarely met anyone who is so passionate about their work, is so amazing at understanding students, and has so much knowledge about the college application process. So, Miss Prasija, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm Procedure. As she introduced me, I'm the career guidance counselor at Stonehill, and I absolutely love my job. And yes, I just love reading about colleges. I just love helping students to find their journey. I just love to see them go to college and succeed. And I think yeah, that's what I'm doing for.
Wow, perfect. Okay, so just to start off with, could you tell everyone what your role is as a counselor in high school?
Right. So every school has a different set of requirements for a counselor. But in the workplace that I go to, we are a very small school, and hence the counselor is, one person that students reach out to for literally anything and everything. So whether it is understanding what courses they need to pick, whether it is to understand what majors they need to pick, or what sort of career trajectory they should have, right from that to actually filing in applications. I sit through every application to see if everything is right. I like to be in control of things. So until they go to college, everything in that area I handle that. Apart from that, yes, external relations and getting universities to visit, preparing them for interviews, going through their essays, all of that. So everything that you want a career counselor to do.
Awesome. And so you've seen a lot of applications in this process, obviously. So from your perspective, what are some of the things you think students should keep in mind while making an application? And then on the other side of the coin, what do you think are some mistakes that students really frequently make?
Okay, so I'll go through the mistakes first, and then come to the keep in mind one. So I think couple of things. I mean, I'm sure most of us would have heard, but we cannot, I cannot just stress enough on this. One is not starting early. A lot of our students who have a lot of aspirations just focus on one or two things. Like, let's say you just focus on your board exams and just get your grades up and don't do anything otherwise. Or some kids only focus on just building a particular profile, and they don't focus on academics. So just keeping a very narrow minded focus or not focusing at all, these are two things which just leads to procrastination, delay, and not having the right kind of application that it ought to be. So start early. It does not hurt to start early. You can start slow, but start early. That's something that I've seen, and I keep on stressing that every single time, every single day. I'm yet to get there. The second one is following a lot of hearsay, that my uncle went there, or my parents' friends went there, or my relatives live in this place and they told me. So if you have an opinion about something, so do they. So follow your heart rather than following a herd mentality. You can do a SWOT analysis to understand if this is a particular college, if this kind of college is what you want to go. So not having your a certain approach is also a big mistake, because then you just it's like marbles on the floor, they just go everywhere. And I feel that's not the right approach, and we call it herd mentality. I am strictly against having a herd mentality, because what worked for someone may not work for you. Third is repeating the college list and repeating the activity list what someone else did. This I see more often, and it's natural, right? Because this worked for this ABC student, got into a really good university. Let me try something. You're that's I think the first step to failure, because you're not unique. The university has seen so many applications, and you're just trying to duplicate someone else's list, and that's not going to work out. So I mean, within your capacity, within your context, within your own life, I'm sure there are so many things that you can do. And it does not have to be grand in scale. I keep on telling this to people. It does not have to be so, magnificent or really, really like a national award sort of a thing. It's okay. It's something that you enjoy doing, and do it at your own scale and be confident in talking about it. And I've seen many, many applications go like that and be successful. So I think what you're doing, keep doing, Don't be under that stress that, oh, I have to do 8 activities or I have to do 25 activities, or my counselor told me to do these many because someone else in that batch did it. I think let's follow our own path, and it really, really works. Another one was, not a lot of us do have medical situations and mental health conditions, especially in today's time. Universities are more than open to learning this about you, and many students do not share this. I've personally seen cases where families are stigmatized. They come from, they're not conditioned to share these things, and it becomes very difficult. So they don't share. But universities are equipped. They have that sort of a support system to help you out. So please let them know. And how it helps is, a lot of students think that, oh, it's am I going to be, sympathy seeking, or is this going to make them feel any less of me? Does that make me a bad candidate? These are questions that students generally ask. Or is this going to be, will this be a disadvantage to my application, are the things that generally they ask. And my answer is no, it does not. It in fact is the opposite. It is advantageous, because then you have set in such a unique context to your whole application, right, to your story, that you had your own challenges that you tried to overcome, and with that you did so many other things. So it only makes you more appealing as a student. And universities do have that sort of a support system to help you out through that. So by all means, share that. And apply for financial aid. Like, ask for money if you need money. They will not know magically that you need money. A lot of students don't apply for financial aid or scholarship, and then they start writing emails to universities or telling the admission rep that, I'm not coming to your university because you didn't give me any scholarship. But well, did you apply? Did you ask for it? So this is where planning comes in handy. So I would say, if you need money, apply for financial aid. Let them know you need money. Let them know what your situation is. And I think, these are things that I think we should keep in mind, and also are common mistakes that I see a lot. And we try to rectify it well, before the deadline or before it's too late. Few things that students should keep in mind. You're going to study there, right?
Yeah.
Choose a college that
Hopefully.
offers your course, yeah, or choose a college that matches your learning goals, not because of the brands, not because a particular famous figure went there, not because of anything else. Do take it because you apply to that place because it offers you the course. So that's the first step. I know it's as basic in like the moment, but yeah, not many of them apply. Even now, I have some. I do read about cases, and it's baffling. The second thing is, subscribe to the mailing list. A lot of our students are really scavenging through the internet to find authentic information and to find actual information. But that one place, it's a gold mine of real and authentic information, is this university website and their mailing list. So you get curated information regarding your courses, your majors, the life that you're looking at, and that can be used potentially as a filter for us. So do subscribe to the mailing list, attend university sessions, because these are not agents or external service providers who are doing it for you. The universities themselves putting there, spending time. And these small sessions are often places where they take the time to answer your questions. They get to know you, which is so important. You need to know who your first reader is, and we put in a lot of time understanding that. So this is your opportunity to know who your first reader is and get your answers there, rather than typing it out on other FB groups and looking for Insta, and doesn't work out. I think let's be smart here. Um, and if you want information, again, as I said, don't feel shy. Ask them. They're here to help us. And if you get an honest response, go for it. If you feel that, okay, this is not something that I want, put remove it off your list. It's fine. There are many other colleges that will match your needs. So that's something that we need to be really, really careful. And I feel, don't apply to a university. If you want a scholarship and if you're applying for financial aid, let's not apply to a university that does not have that sort of funding. There is no point, because it's just waste of time, waste of energy, waste of resources, waste of money. So let's not apply to a place that doesn't give any scholarship, or does not encourage international students, or does not even have a healthy
Yeah.
financial aid package does not make sense at all.
Yeah.
Because
And
even if you get in, you won't go. You can't afford, you know.
and
So
it
that is
costs
something.
money to apply also, so you're literally throwing money down the drain.
Absolutely, absolutely. You might use that $80 to go apply to a
Yeah,
university
exactly.
that wants you and is willing to give you that scholarship, right? So, yeah, efficient use of money here. Another thing is applying to like 20 colleges and above. And I know a lot of students who off late are trying to do that because they think there is an uncertainty that I may not get in. What if I don't get in? I need to have a backup, and then I have backup ka backup, backup ka backup. So that's something that I don't agree. You can get into your dream college even if you apply to one. You can get into your dream college even if you apply to five, or even if you apply to eight, or max to max 10. So if you have a curated list of 8 to 10, I think it's a good list for you to get in. Now it's how strategically you make that 8 to 10 is something that we should look at. But 2022, absolutely big no, you know. And yeah, be honest in your application. Like that's like a given, and that's like the standard response everybody gives you. But it is important because they can see through, they can catch through if you're not honest in your application, and that really does not come across well. Forget about you not getting in; it might just tarnish your school's image also, or your counselor's image also, or your teacher's image, and they have wholeheartedly put in recommendations for your students. Just see the picture that we're painting. It's not a happy picture. And I think a last pro tip for students who are doing any sort of testing, whether it's PUK CAT or SAT or ACT or AP or anything, evaluate more than you practice. So if you practice twice, evaluate thrice. That will help you to avoid similar mistakes, will work on your time management. And I think one of the solid ways to improve your scores if you're really looking at that, So yeah, these are a few things that we should keep in mind. Yep.
Right. So when you say evaluate, you mean like look over your mistakes, see what you did wrong, and then remember what you did wrong.
Absolutely right. That's right.
Right. Now, I really like your point about the learning goals as well. I think a lot of students are like, I want to do computer science, so I'll apply to Stanford because it's the best. But then they don't realize that at Stanford, 30% of undergraduates are CS majors. So all the computer science classes are huge. You have to wait in line for office hours. And if you really need one-on-one support, you might not get that over there. Absolutely. I think that's such a good point about that you said about learning goals, and make sure the university aligns with yours.
Absolutely. So, I mean, imagine 4 years, day in and day out. I know a lot of us go to schools, right? And then you'll be like, oh my God, I don't like my school because I've not got this, or I don't have this, or I have got to do this, right? So imagine 4 years, crores of rupees, and you're going to a university and not liking it. It's not something that we would want to risk. So I would say do your thorough understanding and back end research and really write it down. I think writing down really helps. It does not take much time. Just write it down what exactly you want. So this is a simple exercise that I can tell for students who are looking, how do I finalize my major? Just close your eyes and write down 10 things you dream in your wish list, or 10 things you dream in your dream college, 10 things that you want in your dream college. Just write down, and without any inhibition, just write it down in your diary. And now start looking for those colleges that actually offer these things. And believe me, you will find more than you think, the number of colleges that has to offer this. And I think you are going to be more happy in the whole process of applying to colleges rather than following someone else's guidance.
Yeah. And then also when it comes to finding colleges, you talked a little bit about herd mentality. And I think a lot of students believe that there's 3 options, US, UK, and then some people will also go for Canada. But what I really liked about our school is that you really encouraged us to look at other options and not limit ourselves to just these 3. So things like Netherlands, Australia. I know that we had university visits from Twente and TU Delft, I think. Right. And so why do you sort of encourage people to apply to these hidden gems?
I think, again, I would come back to the goals. It's very important to set filters. Every student is different. Every family is different. Their goals are different. The financial situation is different. What they want to do, their career goals are different, right? So some of the universities they match these goals may not be in the US, UK. Must be in Europe. And why not? If that's there, why not? And European universities are fast climbing the world rankings now. No nonsense education. we have students who are studying there and they're absolutely happy. The cost of living is lower, so which is easy on the pocket. You still get a degree that is valued. You still get a job. So I mean, and these students are mostly who want to save some money at the undergrad level, and they also want to have a quality education. So why not? And I mean, the faculty is good, the research output is great. So I am all for looking beyond, the US, UK, and Canada, because there are so many good universities that students can look at. In Italy, there are a few great ones in Germany. I mean, students saying, "Oh, Germany is only German education." No, we have a student who's studying in Germany for free in English. So yes, there are these places. There are few in Ireland, there are few in Spain. There's Australia and New Zealand have some really really good courses. So yep, if you want to apply now, for example, let me give you an example of marine biology. The kind of colleges that you get in Australia, you will not get that specialized major in US. So there's no point in applying to the US if you're looking at those majors. I mean, UK has similarly like that. You won't find that in Netherlands. So similarly that way, some students want very hands-on experience. So let's say if you're looking at Sciences Po in France, the kind of network that you build there, I don't think you get that anywhere in the world. Now, this is my personal opinion, not naming a particular university, but yeah, this is what my understanding says. So definitely look beyond the US, UK, and Canada. There are so many good universities who will match your learning goals, career goals, and financial goals in a much easier way, right? So you can definitely look into that.
And then tuition in Europe is very subsidized as well. In some cases, it's almost free, I think.
Right. That's right. That is right. That's right. So I think definitely they don't give out so many scholarships, but the tuition fee is way less than what a US or a UK education, asks for. So yeah, if you are someone who has a budget, then Europe can be a great option with quality education. So if you're looking at something within 15 lakhs, within that sort of a thing, so Europe can be good, really good. Yeah.
And then, since we're on the subject of money, a lot of people have asked this. A lot of schools, they don't have counselors, and private counselors will charge in the lakhs, sometimes upwards of 2-3 lakhs. So what would you recommend to them? Do you really need a counselor to apply abroad? Should you go for it? Should you not?
Now again, I would, my answer would be a yes and a no. Again, if you're someone who is a newbie and you're starting and you have absolutely no idea, I would say you need a mentor. And the mentor can be your own parents, can be your classmates, your teacher, your homeroom teacher or class teacher, someone, and might want to reach out to them and have a conversation about it. There are a lot of pro bono organizations when you Google them, and they do pro bono counseling and helping for free. So you can write to them. They are willing to help students, with their questions and answers. And they also have a lot of free webinars, a lot of free university fairs, and you can actually be a part of them. Similarly, I think on Instagram and FB, there are a lot of peer groups where you can actually go and seek help for students who have gone. I think every university has an alumni page. You might want to reach out to alumni. So it really depends on what your needs are and where you're stuck in the whole process. So if you're someone who's starting new, I would say start from home, talk about it, have a discussion, and then go ahead. Second, if you already started but you're kind of not sure of how to navigate through it, then organizations like this are plenty on Google. So only thing is don't share financial data and be careful online. But there are a lot of good ones which you can always take help from. But if you ask me if you need like a paid counselor, no.
Okay, that'll be a relief to a lot of people. And the point about free organizations as well, there's, I believe, which is started by Katie Tracy, there's something called Beam Community. I'm mentoring a few students through that for free, just looking over their essays, helping them decide which colleges to apply to. And then there's also College Vine, I think, where you can get people to review your essays for free.
Yep, absolutely. I think Next Genius Scholarships also does a pretty good work in terms of a lot of webinars that they do for free. So you might want to look out for those webinars as well. Sign up, and they do some genuine work. Yeah.
And so that brings me to another question. I think we talked about this a little bit as well with my application. a lot of people come from a background where they cannot afford these extremely expensive summer programs in the US or research programs, for example, Lumiere. And so, how would you recommend that they build their extracurricular profile to be really strong?
I mean, make use of the school. Now, every school you can just start a club in school. Look at whatever apartment you're looking, identify problems in your apartment and start looking for solutions. You don't have to go to a summer school. You don't have to go for extremely, the so-called prestigious internship projects. Don't need to do that. Do whatever is in your capacity. You like to write, go ahead and start writing. Make a WordPress and start blogging about it. Or if you like photography, start taking pictures and put it on your Insta handle. Do things which are self-driven and which does not require any external dependence. I think today with social media, you have got more than you can think of. And if you have a mentor, I think talk to the mentor about this rather than making sure I have to go to this ABC big short, summer program, because one, it does not help. Second, it does not help. So, it does not help,
Yeah.
I mean, and universities know there are very few programs, research programs and summer programs, and all these best ones are for free. So if you want to really
exactly.
make use of that, you can go and do that. MIT RSI, then there's one with at BU. I think I'm not getting the name. It's a math program. So yeah, there are some 3 or 4 programs which are like that, which are free, but they're really, really well respected. So if you're going, then you might as well go for those kind of programs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there is enough and more that you can do within your community, and believe me, there is no dearth. It's all about how much you want to do. Again, a lot of this inhibition comes because the counselor told me to apply for 5 summer programs, or I have to do one each year, or the school requires you to do a project and all of that. So in fact, I'll tell you, in fact, even if you're going through your school and if you're applying for these projects, you might want to seek if there is any financial assistance to such programs also. Let's say you do find one of these paid programs really interesting and you do want to take it up. The school can try and see if there is a financial assistance available, because you're meritorious, or because you really have done some prerequisite work, or you genuinely are going to be taking a lot away from this program. Then otherwise, there is enough things that you can do in school. Yeah, whether it is regardless of the size of the school, regardless of the curriculum. It's not that only if you're an IB kid, you can do this or something. No, you can do so much, really, really so much. There are a lot of organizations like YLAC you can sign up if you're into social justice. You can start your own club at school. You can participate if someone is running a club at school. Not everybody needs to be a leader. You can participate and join hands and contribute. Take part in school events and just talk about it. And maybe what you start as an inter-school event, maybe take it to a local event in the city, and then maybe just go. So you might want to do more in-depth activities and number of activities. And yeah, the bottom line is you don't need an expensive summer program to add value to your resume. No.
So that was going to be my next question as well, because you really helped me understand this when it came to depth versus breadth profiles. Why do you think that kind of one is better than the other? And is it for everyone that a depth profile is better?
Yes, I feel a depth profile is better than a breadth profile, because when you do depth profile, let's look at swimming as an activity, normal. So one, you do swimming because you like doing it. So you might want to put that as an activity and say, okay, I do swimming twice a week, so many hours. But because you like doing it, you join the school swimming club. Because you really are interested in that, you might want to represent the school in competitive events. Because the school has identified that, okay, the student is really driven and is representing the school, you might get into mentoring the younger kids, or the lower classes, to teach swimming. Now, just with one swimming, I have listed down 5 activities. Now, this is what I call a depth profile, but there is still breadth, because from the school you went to, an inter-school event, then you're showing leadership. So you're showing so many skills just to one activity. So I wouldn't say swimming is one activity. Here you just got 5. So I always feel depth profile is much better, because in that itself you're showing breadth. So it really is how you curate your activities is really, really matters, and what learning outcomes that you want to do with it is something that if you can list it out, it will help you to do the backward planning. Yeah.
Yeah. I get a lot of questions or comments saying, do you think I can finish an extracurricular in 1 to 2 months? And I always think, well, if you really enjoy something, why would you only do it for 1 to 2 months? You have 4 years of high school.
Yep.
I think that's such a good point.
Yes, it is. It is. Sometimes a lot of we all are in the generation of 2 minute noodles. So we all want quick fixes. So we think, oh, I'm going to do like 6 or 8 activities in the next 2, 3 years, and all
Yeah.
2 months, 2 months, and small ones, and I'll go show so much of variety, and it'll be really exciting to see my profile. I have worked with resume that goes on for 3 pages and 4 pages. So it does not impress anyone. If you're able to talk about your activity, if you're able to talk about their experience, reflect on it, and use it. So that's what matters, whether it is 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years. You know, yeah, yeah.
And one more question I got from someone that I thought is a really good question, and you would be able to answer this because you directly sort of take care of the schools part of the application. Do you think the kind of school you comes from affects your application? So if it's small versus big, and then also if no one from your school has ever applied to this university before, does that put you at a disadvantage?
In some universities, yes,
Okay.
because I do, meet a lot of university reps, and it's not there's no stigma, but there are some universities who do not know about the school at all. So what happens is it's then the school's responsibility and the student's responsibility to make yourself visible
Okay.
on various university sessions and stuff, so that the university gets a chance to know who you are, and put a face to the name, and try to the university also then goes and researches about this, because for them every application is unique, and they don't want to just rule out any application just because you're coming from a smaller school. But because they don't know the school, they don't know the curriculum, they don't know the ethos, for them to actually have faith and trust and blindly go ahead with that application becomes slightly difficult. And that's where, when you make us walk that extra mile, university also does that. Second question is, if no one else has applied from your school, does that make a disadvantage? I think no. You were the first one who applied to Dartmouth and you got in. So I don't think that's a myth. It does not work like that. I feel today universities are really looking at more diversity. So they want to see students coming from different schools and new, unique, and fresh perspectives and fresh applications. So no, it's a myth. Nothing like that.
Yeah, because nowadays even I see a lot of small CBSE schools, they will have students getting to Ivy League schools.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So there is nothing like that. That okay, you're coming from a smaller school, so you won't get in just because your city is full of the so-called big privileged schools. If your application is good, you will stand out regardless of everything. But yes, there is some amount of background work that we need to do as a school. So maybe if a school principal or might want to just make sure that the school profile is really good and things are clear and put in context, it just helps them. Yeah.
Right. So I think this is my second last question. A lot of students are really, really confused about what they want to do. And I know you deal with students like that on an everyday basis. I was one of them, proudly. What do you suggest to them? How do you figure out which course you want to apply for? And then as well as US versus UK, because of the difference in applications.
So when you do UK, we really have to know what course we're applying for. Because UK, if you go and search for the applications or the courses, they want you to know exactly what you're coming for. So if you're a student who is unsure of what you are absolutely getting into, or you don't know what you want to study, I would not recommend UK, because UK requires you to specifically mention the name of the course and then apply only to that course. You can't change your major. You go there, you study 3 years, whatever you selected. So it's a very straightforward approach. But for students who do not have a major yet, or have not decided what you really want to do, then I think US becomes the best destination because of the kind of education that they follow. It's very holistic. The first year is a common year, the core year. The second year you start specializing. So even if you have multiple interests, let's say computer science, philosophy, design, and still understanding psychology, you have multiple interests. I would say go forward with those multiple interests, because then you are really coming as a person with varied skill set.
Yeah.
right? So you are able to talk more perspectives than others. You're able to relate to three or more different ideas than others. So you're possibly a stronger applicant if that makes you
Yeah.
feel better, you know. And I think be stay true to yourself. Talk about it. That these are my interests, and I have not, narrowed it down. And nobody is asking you to narrow it down at the age of 16 or 17. We really don't know what you're going to do for after 40 years of your life, you know. So we don't want, nobody wants us to have the pinpointed, very, very, skimmed approach. So if you have multiple interests, talk about those multiple interests, apply with those multiple interests, and let the university know. There are, when you select the courses in a particular university on Common App, you will be asked to choose a major, and every major below in that drop down list there is something called as undecided.
Yeah.
But there is also a dialog box or like a comment box where they ask you to explain. So you just go and write that my interest is computers, my interest is math, or my interest is music, and write about it. Because if you do not let the university know what you are interested in at the time of application, I think it's an opportunity wasted, because the university is not going to hold you accountable for choosing a particular major at the time of application versus doing something else when you land in college. They know more than 60 to 70% students go through changes in major, so they understand that. And there are a lot of factors that drive this decision. So it's okay. So in the month of October, when you're applying, you're really in love with the psychology department, and you're applying for psychology, but you're not sure if this is what the major that you want to do. It's fine. Click on undecided. Let them know that this is an interest that you are following, but you want to choose your finalizing major only when you come to college. That's absolutely fine. But let them know what you're interested in. Don't leave that section blank.
Yeah. And then even then, there's also like multiple boxes: major one, major two, major three. So I put like three different, completely different interests, and that was fine.
Absolutely fine, because nobody wants you to. I mean, there is no set rule that you have to apply to this only, or you cannot choose this, or because I've studied PCM, I'm supposed to do only engineering. Why cannot, like, I cannot apply to any other major? There is nothing like that. You're going to university to study. So, by all means, choose what you wish to study and put that on your wish list. And, let the university know. That's one part of being honest,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Perfect. So, final question: how do you feel about gap years? Because it's such a rising trend, but at the same time, lots of parents are really hesitant.
I would say if you feel you're not ready for college, go for a gap year. A gap year can be very helpful on many accounts. Now, I am also one of, I don't recommend gap year to everybody until unless I really know what you're getting into. If you are, if there has been a financial crisis, or if there is, parents are not happy about it, or COVID can be so, a lot of uncertainties prevailing around COVID. You don't feel comfortable going to college at this time. Go for a gap year. 1 year in the entire scheme of things does not make a big difference. However, if you want to go for a gap year just without having a valid reason, just because you're tired of doing grade 12 and preparing for board exams, then believe me, you'll start getting bored the 2 weeks after after you decided to go for gap year. And that's not productive. So if you have things in mind, some people wanted to pursue music. I remember some of my kids wanted to actually go and spend time with their grandparents. Some of them actually wanted to go trek and travel some places. So it makes sense. I mean, they had some really cool projects that they had signed up for, and that required time. Going for a gap year, absolutely fine. Everybody respects that decision. There is no stigma, there is no disadvantage of going for a gap year and then applying to college. I have seen so many students of our school only. They go for gap year and then they come back and say, "Miss, I'm ready to apply," and they've got into good places. So universities don't discriminate between a regular application or a gap year application. Just that we have to have concrete information of what you did in the gap year or what you plan to do in the gap year. If you don't have a logic to it, or if you don't have like really planned out things, then it does not make sense. Then you're wasting a year. But if you want to take your time off to really reevaluate your choices, and take a fresh look at things, then yes, by all means, I'm happy with that decision.
Awesome. Perfect. Right. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the channel. I think this is going to be so helpful to a lot of students. A lot of the questions kept coming up multiple times. So I thought these are the ones that I'll pick. Is there anything you want to say to the audience?
Follow your heart, have fun, and just be wacky. Just go all out. Have no inhibitions while you're making the applications.